Hello and welcome back to Yapping About Sports. And hopefully, this is Yapping About Sports on YouTube. That is right. I finally have figured out the YouTube space, and hopefully, we'll be posting podcast episodes up on YouTube from now on and going forward. Have been on Apple and Spotify for 2026, and what once became or was a New Year's goal was just to record and talk about sports more has really invigorated me to talk about it more, create more of a space, going to all the games, meeting all the fans, getting a little bit of a following on social media and talking to more people and connecting. Been an awesome time this year going to college basketball games, NHL hockey games, NBA playoff games, and now a lot of Major League Baseball games. Have knocked off 3 stadiums this season. I've been to Comerica Park, Progressive Field, and PNC Park. Went to Durham for North Carolina and Duke, but am now looking to go into the YouTube space a little bit more, and hopefully I'm able to present that to you guys. So without further ado, into today's show. It's all about the Tigers as it has been, and today's game was the culmination of the 2026 season. And again, you sort of go back to before the season began. You look at where you ended last season. You lose in Game 5 in Seattle to the Seattle Mariners with Tarek Skubal on the mound, and it is so fitting that Tarek Skubal is on the mound today. And for me, and since he really became and really brought him into his own in 2024, the feeling and vibe when Tarek Skubal takes the mound is no different than it was for when Justin Verlander was here. Is that the feeling should be that you should win every single time Tarek Skubal toes that rubber for a start. And what the reality of the situation is, you look at 2024 ALDS, Tarek Skubal on the mound gives up a grand slam, Tigers lose that game. Could have made yourself a little bit better. Didn't really do anything with the offense. 2025, you said we're going to run back the offense. Torkelson was on thin ice, sort of regained himself last season. Tigers make a postseason run, have Kevin McGonigal up and coming, wasn't able to make any appearances at the major league level in 2025, but there was a lot of moving momentum, and you started with McGonigal on the year in the lineup. You know that you lost Jackson Joe, but he is right around the corner from returning, which also I will talk about later. Dives into why Tarek Skubal should be another reason that Tarek Skubal is dealt in the next couple of days. I think that his last 4 or 5 starts were perfect auditions of what you're going to get. You're going to get shutdown baseball, and who knows if the next staff or next managing team, if it becomes to that point. Again, that's all a hypothetical. He is still a Detroit Tiger as I'm recording this, so that you have to treat it as he is going to make his next start. But as the timetables roll around August 4th in Seattle, Tarek Skubal should not be on this roster, and the main question now turns to, will it be just Tarek Skubal himself for a decent haul, or will it turn into Tarek Skubal and company and or friends, where you have names like Casey Mize that have been thrown around? What do you do with the name when it's healthy, like Gleyber Torres, Spencer Torkelson? Are there any takers for maybe a formal number 1 pick? You know, there is still a lot of market cash and a lot of market value out there for names like Tarek Skubal, obviously, and for Spencer Torkelson. But in terms of today's game, you're up 7-0. All things are humming. I majority had to listen to this game on the radio, was not in attendance as I have been for the majority of the season the last couple of months, but not able to make it because it wasn't a night game. I had daytime work. 8 to 4:30 is my working schedule. TMI there, but it is what it is. So not able to be in attendance today, but Tigers unable to win this game, and it was the frustration that the bullpen once again can't come through. Finnegan, Anderson, I think it would be a hard time finding a reliever that didn't have an earned run tagged to their name today. And 3 of those earned runs go to Tarek Skubal, but he gave you an outing that should have been a 1 earned run outing. And you fall 7 games under 500, and it boils down to this. You can make your team better for the future and can see what you have prospect-wise coming up for the rest of the season. See if you can get a little bit younger. See what you can do if you have any bullpen arms are able to have with control that you're able to get for Skubal at the deadline. But at the end of the day, you have an opportunity to make your team better. There are just too many teams right now in the postseason race, both in the American and National League, and/or teams that are already at the top of the standings, like the Yankees, like the Dodgers, and now like the Tampa Bay Rays and maybe Milwaukee Brewers are looking to add. And all that I ask is that if you make a trade, and it's in making a trade in baseball, honest to God, is one of the hardest things to do. And I haven't been in the room, but just looking through the types of returns and looking at how much the Tigers truly struck out, when they dealt Verlander, dealt Upton, dealt Kinsler, dealt Castellanos. They really did swing and miss on a lot of those prospects and trades, and that's no dig at Cameron and Jake Rogers. And Drake Rogers was just designated for assignment from the Detroit Tigers. So, he was also a major part in Skubal and his coming into his own the last couple seasons. But you can only be there without producing at the plate for so long. You can do all you want behind the plate, calling a game, catching the ball, being a defensive catcher, throwing out runners, but you are there to also hit the baseball, and that ultimately results in that decision. And you lose in 12 innings, but to me, I just continue to look at this past offseason between 2025 and the opening day of 2026, is that you lost because you didn't have timely hitting and you didn't have a bullpen. And you decide to, I get that it was a going for it type of signing, but it hasn't been a going for it type of result when you signed $38 million to Framber Valdez with an above 4 ERA. When to me, the way that I saw that signing is that you already knew this was Skubal's final season in a Tigers uniform and wanted to ease the blow of transitioning into a new rotation without Skubal in it. And I think that Valdez, having the familiarity with A.J. Hinch, knowing the type of arm he was getting, pitching in the postseason, pitching in a World Series for A.J. Hinch, I think was a lot of positives on paper. I didn't mind the Justin Verlander signing. I know you can't really control that he's only thrown 3 innings in the month of March, and who knows what the future holds. We obviously know he's retiring, but in terms of him actually towing the rubber at Comerica Park for the Tigers in a Tigers uniform again, we really just don't know. It's a lot of this is up in the air, but to focus on some positives here, you have 2 names that aren't currently pitching for the Tigers on the major league level in Reese Olson and Jackson Jobe. And you also have Casey Mize that's possibly going to come back. You have Troy Melton, Kiter Montero. You do have a lot, and obviously if you can correct Framber Valdez and see what Valdez is able to do for the rest of his time. But to me, you have a lot to work with in terms of pitching and arms in the starting rotation. You still have at times, even though they lose 2 out of 3 games to the Orioles, this was the most consistent offense I think we've seen in a series from beginning to end, whether it be 3 games or 4 games, in a very long time. You go 5 runs, you lose 8-5 in the opening game against the Orioles. You continue to move on and go for 14 runs against the Orioles in Baltimore in Game 2. And you still were able to put together 9 runs today over 12 innings, and we're up 7-0 in this game. So do you have an offense that you can work with? Yes, but it's not perfect. You need to add to it. And Jake Rogers should be the first name out of a couple to come out of this lineup. James Outman and Matt Vierling, I don't think have very much service time left. I think you can hold on to them through this season. But you have names that are eventually going to come knocking by the end of this season, whether it be Max Clark or whoever else comes through this system. I think it's time to have some conversations, and you have to start, what's this future really look like? How much is it internal? How much is it who you have currently on your MLB roster and your AAA roster? Or do you have a couple competition positions in your whole system next season? That is what the questions will become. But the ultimate goal is you want to win a World Series. And regardless of if this team somehow miraculously made a run to the postseason, who gets outs after the 7th inning? Who gets outs after the 6th inning? Who is able, if you can't win a 7-0 game when Tarek Skubal leaves the game in the 7th inning, it's 2 outs in the 7th inning, then I don't think you're going to be able to beat a team in the postseason or games that truly matter. And this was a season-defining game. You had Baltimore, who's also basically the same team as you, underperforming expectations with the type of core that they have, but they're in the same picture, they're in the same boat. And now looking at the standings before I'm recording this, as there's some action going on, the Rangers and the Rays, the Yankees and Cam Schlittler are playing in Chicago right now against the White Sox. The Indians are against the Reds. So still some baseball action going on as I record this, but you ultimately have to compete. You have to have the goal of winning. And to me, 2 things. 1, Tarek Skubal has to be gone, has to be dealt. You have to make your team better, or at least attempt to make your team better. And 2, give you have to look for the future. That has to be the bottom line. So whether it be Max Clark or whoever else, go with young guys. Go with Valencia as the DH spot. Hopefully Kerry Carpenter is able to come back, but you have to focus on getting your lineup as healthy as possible, so you look at what the reality of your 1 through 9 is going to be, and where you really need to hammer home, whether it be just, utility players or some guys that are better than Outman or McKinstry at times or Vierling. Those three names, just you can't get stuck up, and they have their moments, and they have positives. Yes, can McKinstry have the versatility to play in the field, but as of late, better bat, but the whole picture is it's just not a great picture from top to bottom. So we will see where things land. 51-58, 4 games out of a playoff spot. I just don't see it happening, and I think Tarek Skubal is done. I don't want to deal with any more of the theatrics of good guy, bad guy. Arbitration was handled how it was handled, and that sort of seems to have put a little bit of a burr into the relationship. Boris and Skubal have really made a hard campaign at going at the Tigers and really saying we want to stay here to see what the Tigers will do. I'm not a huge fan of that either. I don't like having player versus organization because we all know it's a business. We all know who runs the businesses. So, yeah, was this it for Tarek Skubal? I appreciate every outing and every start he had. And to me, I would say it was more of a failure on the Tigers not getting him enough help, whether it be enough run support in a lineup that you could consistently have, behind you, or whether it be a bullpen that you can have trust in getting you outs after he leaves the game. After a 14-0 win, the Tigers looked on their way to 2 straight wins and securing a series victory over Baltimore. That would not be the case. 10-9 in 12 innings of play today to lose, and I won't be back at Comerica Park for at least 10 or 11, 12 days, and as they head out west for Seattle, San Francisco, and Sacramento being up first. Travel day tomorrow before they begin that series over the weekend, so long way to go. We shall see. In playoff hopes are pretty much none. I would be focusing on the future, and it really does stink because it's not too far off of where we were just feeling in January once you realized that the Lions were out of the playoff picture after making it 2 previous years, because even if it wasn't the same type of expectation, I'm still in the boat that if you get in, you can give yourself a chance, as we've seen in the 2024 season. So that is what I have for you guys today. Thank you all for listening and now watching, as I am on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, on TikTok, on all the, I know I probably just said TikTok there twice, but I'm on Apple and on Spotify for the podcast. Also find myself here on YouTube for YouTube Shorts on the games that I do attend and game recaps. Thank you all again for watching and listening. This is, again, Yapping About Sports, and I will see you guys again tomorrow.